What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of my HLTV Fantasy. Today we are looking at EPL Season 19 Groups A and B. First off, here's my team from Chengdu playoffs. Not too amazing, not too bad either, with a top 25 percenter. Face winning the event, but Carrigan not really performing that highly. He got some boosters and such, but ratings just were pretty poor. Frozen was just okay. Mir, fine-ish, but would have wanted a bit more from him for sure. Monesi was really good, but like they lost to Mo again, so what can you do? Either way, let's go to EPL. Interesting event in my opinion. Two groups in this one fantasy. I think the best way to think about this is a double elimination, right? Kind of a triple elimination. But teams I want to go for are the ones that are going to make it to the upper final as fast as possible. Because those teams just play the least games. If you make it to the upper final, you play the least games. That's how it works. And then you get padding, which is lovely. So yeah, FaZe, Imperial, Astralis, Eternal Fire is kind of the first group you can pick from. FaZe is the favorite here. However, in terms of farming points, Imperial is not a total pushover. Like, I think Imperial have been kind of decent recently. They are a team that can put up a fight. So I think it's going to be closer than someone would expect, especially because FaZe often start out events by being a bit less convincing and then power up into the playoffs and such. Also because Astralis and Eternal Fire are actually pretty decent teams. Like Eternal Fire, this is one of the problems with like seeding this event so early, is that things have kind of changed. For example, Eternal Fire they were playoffs at the major and have been a pretty damn good team for a while now. I think they're very capable, and then Astralis have also shown at least some signs of being a bit better. We don't really know what kind of Astralis is going to be at this event, but we know that there is a lot of firepower on that team. So I would say FaZe is the favorites, but it's not like they are guaranteed to make it to the upper final. On the other hand, the lower side of the bracket, VP, Fnatic, and 3D Max Saw, I would say that VP are the obvious favorites to make it to the upper finals. They should always beat Fnatic. We have seen nothing from Fnatic really lately that would make us think that they're gonna ever beat VP, especially because VP is the kind of team that usually does beat the lower ranked team quite handily. Their playstyle is just so methodical that they can figure themselves out in all of these kinds of matches. And then 3D Max and Saw, like, so we've seen good things from like before the major. At 3D Max we've seen nothing at like this level before, honestly. So I would say VP is the very big favorite and a team that I am probably targeting going into this event. Then Group B, so kind of like VP in Group A, I'd say Vitality is in a similar boat where they just have pretty easy opponents here. Like Sharks is probably one of the worst teams at the event. Just lowest ranked should always be a win for Vitality tier opponent, and the kind of opponent that they can kind of completely farm. Then M80 and Betboom, I would say Betboom are probably slight favorites, especially because Magno Jess has kind of been pretty damn good lately for them. But I would say it's pretty tight, like it could go either way. But which one ever of these two wins, I would say Vitality are super favored in the upper semis. So yeah, Vitality, the other team that I'm probably going to be targeting here. Lower side, Falcons Mongols honestly could go either way. Falcons probably slight favorites. They've had a pretty long break now to figure themselves out. To bring in Dupree instead of Boros, I think that's gonna make them more stable. They are one of the oldest teams. They might be the oldest team, like at this level of Counter-Strike. I do expect them to win against Mongols, but it's not gonna be easy. And it's not like unheard of that Mongols would win this. Definitely not. They have the potential to win here. But yeah, I would say Falcons light favorites, and then Tailu G2. I mean, G2 should absolutely win against Tailu, even if there's some questions of are G2 gonna like replace someone at G2, or is there like a possibility of yeah, I mean, is there possibilities of changes happening within the lineup? For example, Hunter or Nexa being replaced. But still, they should always beat Tailu. Of course, things can happen, but yeah, that's what I expect will happen. So G2, the kind of team where I think whoever actually wins out of Falcons and Mongols here might put up a challenge against G2 in the upper semis, but I would say G2 is still favored there. So like a team that you could go for if you want to gamble a bit more, I would say, definitely. Going into the players and picks here, so like as I said, like Vitality and VP are the kinds of teams that I would love to target here. VP, of course, now have made a switch coming into this event, bringing in Electronic instead of Mir, and that's an obvious upgrade. So what that made me think about a lot is how is the fragging gonna be distributed within the team? Who's gonna be, because like if you didn't see this article by Nero on HLTV, Electronic basically plays all of the same positions that Mir plays. Like it's pretty crazy how they are in such similar positions. But obviously, like Mir has been the worst performing or one of the worst performing players on VP for a long time now, and Electronic is, or was at least at C9, one of the best performing players. So what's gonna happen with the ratings for both Electronic and other players? Because there's an argument to be made that the ratings of other players are gonna go down in comparison to Electronic because he's gonna be getting more of the kills from the same positions that Mir was in. However, there's also the argument, I guess, that James' system and the VP system is one that allows the players in Mir's roles not to frag as much. So there's an argument to be made that Electronic's not gonna frag as much in those positions where Mir played as he did in Cloud9, and that makes it pretty difficult to actually choose these players before we see how VP play and what's gonna happen, because I don't think their roles are gonna be changed for Words and Fames of the world, not too much at least. But it could still impact their ratings. Either way, I would say basically anyone on VP is a decent pick here. Norbert is probably one player I am gonna go for just because it's gonna be tough with the money here. There's a lot of slightly more expensive players that I would like to go for, and he's been playing super well in those kind of more core positions lately. So I would say he's a pretty safe bet pick here. The other one that I'm at least initially going for is Fame, just because he's the other cheapest guy, and we've seen him have some real pop-off maps and events even. So he could have one of those events here. I don't feel confident enough really to pick Electronic, I don't think, just because we don't know what to expect from him in this event specifically. And I mean, who knows? Because there's an actual chance that he's gonna go down to ratings probably slightly above Mir or something like that. And there might be an adjustment period going into James' system as well. Although I don't think it's gonna take too long. But yeah, I would say Norbert and Fame. That's one of the most interesting things about this whole fantasy event, to be honest, because they are only team, except for Falcons, come into this with player changes. At least from the bigger lineups, only them and Falcons have made player changes. So then the other team is Vitality for me. I was kind of comparing Messi and Apex and looking at, is Messi actually worth it or not? And generally speaking, I came to the conclusion that yes, Messi is usually around, should be at least worth the 3k increase. And you have to pick one of these two because the other players are so expensive. I would say Flames, Spinks I prefer Spinks generally. I just think he's less volatile. I think he might even have a higher ceiling, but he also has a higher floor for this team, and I think I like picking him more just in general. That leaves me with just 181. As I said, it's going to be tight with the money. There's some options in these worst teams, and there's options in there's like Falcons, one player in Snappy. I think the player I'm gonna probably trust here is actually Roman. At least with this lineup, that makes the most sense. Or the players at this price point, I think he makes the most sense. Reason being, so are still flavored this matchup versus 3D Max. So haven't been great after the major, or at the major rather, but they've not been poor. Like, they lose sometimes to these teams. Like, this is a bit annoying that they've played against 3D Max and it's like their only loss in the EPL or ESL Challenger League. They've beaten some decent teams here still, like Nine Pandas and Monty. They just haven't played at this level too much. But I just expect So to win this matchup. Even if they lose, they then play against Fnatic here. I don't know. It just seems like the best player at that price point if you go for this. I was looking at options like just going for Apex and Messi. That leaves us with 199. I don't see many players here who I would like. It would be someone like, I guess like someone like Carrigan looks super expensive to me for the rating that I've gotten from him in the past few events. Kind of the same with Hooksy. Like, Hooksy's been better than Carrigan's fragging wise. He's also like 3k more expensive. It's interesting that they've made some of these IGLs so more expensive. Major is a player who I've gone for in the past. Like, he's an actually slightly fragging IGL, I guess. Like, at least he frags a bit more than many others. But also a pretty hefty price point for a player with not a favorable bracket. I'm just trying to see, like, honestly, it would be like, I would like to go for like a Nexar Hunter here. Like, if Nexar Hunter was 199, I would probably go for them because they're like the third easiest, or they have the third easiest route to upper finals. So that's like, but I don't want to go for Hooksy, that's the problem. Things I've been thinking about, other things, yeah, if you don't go double vitality, go like Hooksy and someone else from this G2 team, like a Hunter. And then you could go for like Electronic or maybe Jame here. That's not a bad idea, but I just don't know what to expect from G2 players. They're pretty expensive for what I expect to get out of them. Like Monacy drafts, I don't hate the idea of a Monacy draft, but it's just, again, so expensive. You don't have money for basically any Vitality players if you go for this. You can't really go for these VP players. It gets very difficult. It's a pretty expensive fantasy just in general, I would say. You could go Snoppy. I just don't want to go for him. I don't know what to expect from Falcons. It's a big gamble to go for them, I think. I guess if they lose to Mongols, they would get to play Hailu, I suppose. But if they win, they probably get crushed by G2, or could get crushed by G2. You could go FaZe. I just don't think they're worth it in this bracket, because even though I think they're pretty likely going to the upper finals, I don't think they're gonna get like the craziest ratings in these matches. Whereas I think Vitality and VP are gonna kind of farm. Just has to be a double VP angle, I think, and then I have to just deal with the fact that I'm gonna have one of those cheaper guys as a fifth. I'm trying to think, like, I could make changes like having Jame here and Apex Spinks. That's 180. I could even have electronic if I want, but I might just not go for that. Is this better? Uses the money by 1k better. Better by 1k. Oh, yeah, so it's this versus... So Jame Apex versus Messi and Fame. Man, it's tough. I'll go check Fame's event ratings. I didn't actually have a look at this earlier. Past 3 months. So yeah, he's had a couple of way worse events actually. He was so good in these, but these are like qualifier events, I guess. An actual event, not doing that well. But these are events essentially, I would say, qualifier tier opponents, if you will. Like these teams are the kinds of teams you're gonna play here rather than here. Yeah, so his rating just drops off when he plays worse opponents. That just makes me more feel like going for Fame. He's a pretty aggressive player. I think most of the players on VP are, or there's a lot of these more aggressive players or pretty high entry percentage players. He's kind of up there for them. I guess I just have the most faith in this lineup, to be honest. I've had Roman before, and he was at least reliably okay. It's a gamble, but it could pay off quite well. Like the options are just not that great. Like this is basically the most. I guess you could go this in Carrigan. Just Carrigan is so low fragging right now. Yeah, like Chengdu was really bad for him. He was actually decent in the playoffs of the major. Or just in the main part of the major rather. But he was really bad at Chengdu. I think he was burnt out for sure. Is he feeling better now? Or by now? That's the question, I think. Like how much better is Carrigan feeling now than before? I don't feel like going for Carrigan. I think they've got difficult enough opponents where it doesn't make sense. So Vini, no one really here. Like Body, no. They're gonna get farmed by E. Oh, not really interested. No, I don't think so. I don't think it's any of these cheaper worst team players. I think it's just the team that I had earlier. With Messi and Spinks, I have more expectation for Messi and for Spinks than for Apex and Flames. And then just have Roman. I mean, like, yeah, this was something I was when I was looking at this earlier, I was like kind of confused as well. Like, why is Nathani so expensive when his rating is 0.05 worse? He plays for a worse team, but he's more expensive. That just doesn't make sense. I don't know how they've calculated it. Sin is a player I was kind of looking at as well because I think there's a decent chance that there's an upset with M80 and BetBoom, like M80 were winning against BetBoom. I think it could happen. They beat Liquid or something lately. And he doesn't have the worst stats, and we know that he is capable of fragging sometimes. He did it for Big. He was always more expensive than this for Big. So he's the kind of shout I could also see myself going for, but the problem is that they are... I mean, is he actually a better shout than Roman? They would get to play against Sharks here. Then I think they get Ailu or Mongols. That's a doable matchup. How have M80's stats been? This is a bit of a gambly pick. I think it's more gambly than Roman. He had a pretty good rating at that event. He's actually been fragging. Wait. What? What is this 0.97 based on? If he's... That's confusing. Of course he's playing like NA opposition, but still. This looks really good. What about the team? So pretty mixed. I mean, playing against... But is this the same team even? It is the same team. But they've beaten Liquid here. They beat Legacy here. Like, the recent form is really good. Nouns is not the worst team in the world. I'll actually take this gamble, I'm not gonna lie. I think it's just worth it. I'm trying to think about other combinations of these VP players. I don't think I'm gonna go for any other combination though. There's not really an upgrade I want to make. Even if I downgrade, so the question is like if I downgrade Messi or Spinks to Apex or Flamesy, can I get some improvements in terms of these VP players? I don't think so. Not improvements that I want to go for at least. Like yeah, if I go to Flames instead of Spinks, I can go to Jame instead of Fame. But I think I'm gonna go with Fame for this event. I just feel like that's gonna work out. So yeah, essentially, if you were interested, like I was basically probably gonna go with this lineup, but Roman instead of Sin. But I kind of convinced myself into going for Sin just because like he's been kind of farming the last couple events. Like I know it's against worse opposition, but not fully worse. Like look at this against Liquid. Who's to say they don't do that against Boom? Like could very well happen. If they're getting their game together. Let's go for this. Don't have an Opera. Headshots looks very nice for Fame. Making sure there's nothing clearly better. No, it's headshots. Norbert probably support 40, 48. Messi is also a support player though. 48, 29. But it could be. But what's Sin? Does Sin have any other good roles? Entry is decent on him. Support. I've got like 3 players where support is their best role. I could go IGL on Norbert or Messi. I think I go IGL on Norbert because I think they are more likely to go 2-0, I guess. I suppose so. Yeah, and I kind of hope so because Sin plays against VP. I think that's fine. How good was it really? 48, 29, 51, 40. I mean, you're right. Then, well, we've used up all of the good Messi rolls pretty much. I guess T-side rating is tough. Not a fan of any of these, but I think yeah, it's a matter of just too many support players in this matchup. But I would go for T-side rating and then multi-fragger probably. 3240. Actually, CT rating is better for Spinks here. Yeah, CT rating is just that's best. That seems decent enough. It's best of 3s all the way, so I can throw boosters here. Just KST player, it's Messi. Makes sense. Something like pistol can be used here. There's enough games, pretty certainly, to use almost all the boosters. Just throw on some of the good boosters. Quad, that's decent. That's a high trigger rate. I'll go for assist. I don't know how high the sample is for that, but I'll still go for it. Yeah, I think that's the team. It's relying on these guys, and then I think there's a chance that someone like Sin. Like the thing is, there's not great choices in that price point. I think it's between Roman and Sin, to be honest. And then some random player might pop off from one of these random teams. But I maybe either they lose here and then they get to play against Sharks, which I think they're gonna win. And then they get to play like Mongols, Falcons, Tailu here, which is fine. Or they win here, they get dumpstered once by Vitality, go to lower, and then again play against one of these teams most likely. But yeah, that's the lineup. If you enjoy this kind of content, please remember to leave a like and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.